Hello everyone, my name is Ilya Rukin and welcome to my YouTube channel and part 3 in my series of videos on how I made Doug's Trail. In this series of videos I will show you how I made the video, and I hope you will take away some tips that will help you in making the videos using simple GoPros and a 360-degree camera. In part 3 I will take you through how I take the raw footage from the Insta360 OneX camera and prepare it ready to use in Final Cut Pro. But just to recap, in part 1 I showed you all the camera equipment I used and how I used it out on the trails. Now, one of the things I forgot to mention in part 1 is I do not alter any of the camera settings out on the trail. This is because, again, it adds extra time to the filming and can lead to disastrous mistakes and bring home footage that is extremely difficult to recover from, so I don't even go down there now. So those settings you see at the bottom of the screen in part 1 are the settings I use and nothing else. As you may recall, I do not review the footage taken out on the trails, as it can add a lot of extra time to the ride, which when filming already takes too long. For example, in the film Dunkeld at the Burnham Trail, which I took last year, that filming took 5+ hours to shoot, what you could ride in 30 minutes end to end. Doug's Trail, which you could ride in 10 to 15 minutes, took about 6 hours to shoot. So that gives you a kind of good idea of the amount of time it takes to run along, set up, run back, film, ride past. So you want to really try and minimize the amount of time as possible, because the conditions change, the sun comes in, the rain comes by, and you really want to keep that continuity as much as possible in your film. Now, there are a lot of similarities in this part 3 to part 2 in the steps taken, so if you have already watched part 2, this will be very familiar to you. If you would like to catch up with the other parts in this series, I have left the links in the description below of this video. This is the Insta360 OneX I use alongside my other 4 GoPros. I bought this back in January 2019 and I've used it pretty much on every single film trip since. Its size and reliability has made it my must-have bit of kit alongside the other GoPros that I use. Granted, it is not quite as tough as the GoPros, I do have to treat it with a bit more respect, but with that in mind, it has proven very reliable. It has not let me down in any way. But it is in post-edit where this camera really gives me so much more than the GoPros alone. With a GoPro, I film some footage, and when I bring it back to review, I can only extract one or more useful clips from the footage in a time sequence. However, it's only footage of a scene where I believed I faced the camera, and so often I come back disappointed with the footage because the camera has moved or just placed badly. But it's too late by then and I'm not going back to refilm the scene. The advantage I get with the footage from the Insta360 OneX 360-degree camera is the ability to take multiple clips from a scene at the same point in time. This effectively gives me twice as much, if not more, usable footage from the same clip. Whereas on the GoPros, at most I'm going to get one clip at any particular point in time. This effectively means in some cases I replace 2 GoPros with just one camera. The other advantage this camera gives me is something I could not get with the GoPros because of how I use them in the scene. The GoPros are static, they do not move, and this is probably the same for the 360-degree camera unless I stick it on a 3-meter pole and wave it around. But the advantage is the ability to move the camera viewport over time as I play back the scene. I will go into how I do this in a future video, but let me just say it enables you to position the viewpoint where you want it, even if the camera is placed a bit wonky, up a tree, doesn't really matter. This helps a great deal in bringing back useful footage all the time. As you have seen in part 1, it allows you to follow the rider as the camera moves through the scene, which is something I really can't do with a GoPro. Now let me quickly show you an overview of the workflow at this stage. So like with the GoPro footage preparation, the workflow follows a very similar pattern. Just that we use the Insta360 Studio application instead of the QuickTime application used to trim the GoPro footage. One thing to note, the QuickTime application does not recognize the file format from the Insta360 OneX camera, which has a .insv file. So we take the footage from the camera's SD card and put it into a RAW folder. Once all the footage is copied across, I make a backup copy to another hard drive. Now I'm ready to start finding those clips in all that raw footage. Any of the clips I find, I extract and export. All these files are put into RAW folders I need ready for the next project. Once I've done all that, I make a second backup of the semi-raw review footage, and so that is my workflow for this stage. Now, a thing to note about those MPEG-4 files exported from Insta360 Studio is that they hold additional 360 metadata, which you'll kind of expect. However, do not open and edit these MPEG-4 files with QuickTime, because once you do that and then save them back out again, that metadata is lost. So if you import the same MPEG-4 videos into Final Cut Pro, it will only see them as 2D clips, and so none of the 360 tools available in Final Cut Pro are available for that footage. You will have to go back to the original .invs files and re-export those clips again. So like before, we have the video footage raw folder, and inside that we have the original files from the cameras. In this case we have the GoPro camera and we have the 360 degree camera. So if we go inside the 360 degree camera, here are all the files exported from the 360 degree camera. Now you may note here these files come in pairs. So you've got 1313, a 143, 339, and a 00 and a 10. They're for each lens of the camera. In this case we have two. If you click on any one of those pairs, in this case I'm just going to choose this file here and double click on it, it will open up the application and we get the film playing along with its timeline. So as you can see, the 360 degree footage is shown in a rectangular format. I leave it in this default format because I find it's really easy to see everything. I can choose other views like Tiny Planet, that just gets a little bit weird. Crystal Ball, this I do not use because I cannot see what is behind me. And default view, which is zoomed in, again I can't see much. So I prefer to use the flat view, and that way I can see everything all around me as I go through the scene from that camera's point of view. Now if I want to choose the start and end point of this, just like in QuickTime Pro, I can grab the trim bars on either end, and this will define the points of the end and start of what will be exported to an MPEG-4 file. Now if I'm happy with that selection, if I hit Command B, I do not want to save any changes at this point, and here we get the video export settings. Now I leave everything as it is, even the bitrate, introduce any more noise into a 360 degree video as much as possible, because I have found in the past the 360 degree camera, unless the conditions are very bright, noise can be introduced to the footage quite easily, and so I do not want to add any more noise in at this stage. So at the sacrifice of file size, I will keep the bitrate as high as possible. I will change the file name to something that is more relevant to me, to be inserted alongside with the GoPro footage. Click OK, and that will go off and export that particular file to a destination directory. Once that's done, that is it. That is one file exported. The benefits. So like with the GoPro footage at this stage, the benefits are about the same. Okay, that completes part 3 of this series. In part 4 I will show you how I build the animated trail maps I use to show viewers where the trips took place. I may also show you how I am now using Google Earth to build those 3D fly-through maps. This might be quite involved, and I may split that out into a future video if the next video gets a bit too long. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to be sure not to miss any future videos, then do hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions about how I create my videos, then please do put them in the comment section below, and I will be happy to answer them. I would like to say thank you for watching, and I hope you will join me for my next video in this series. Until then, keep safe, and I'll catch up with you guys later. I thought while I'm here, I'll show you my setup for my blogging, and how I'm making this part 1, part 2, part 3, and these other videos in this series. I have an iPad up there, which I can put into presenter mode. If I touch this, it'll scroll up, and hopefully I can get my words right. I'm still practicing on that. Actually, it's more difficult than I thought it would be. But hey, practice makes perfect. This is a Panasonic camcorder from a good few years ago. It does only 180 HD resolution, but the image quality is exceptional. And now that I've got to use it more using these blogs, I found a lot of features that I thought I'd never used, but I have really used. I got this off Amazon quite cheap, but it was still expensive at the time. I think this camera is at least 10 years old. And again, I'm still finding features that I'm finding extremely useful. It just goes to show, if you buy the gear with all the features,
the longevity of it just lasts, and so I'm still getting to use this camera and it works perfectly fine. Very, very happy with it. We've even put filters on the front. It's got a 55mm screw thread on here, so I've got an ND filter and I can screw in here. It's got a horseshoe mount on the side. But I just leave it to its own devices, let it autofocus, white balance and stuff, and it seems to come out really, really well. And connected to it is a Sonic transmitter and receiver with a lapel. So yeah, that's my blogging setup. Those are my words I'm going to say today, or try to say today. And while I'm here, that is my old faithful Mac Pro 4,1 upgraded to a 5,1, maxed out to the hilt, and yes, that's what I've been using for my video editing.